Hello, San Francisco, and welcome once again to the Angelic Troublemakers. I'm your host, Alan Jones, and on today's program, blacks folks should boycott SFO. I'm bringing you this program today based on an article I read this past Monday in the San Francisco Examiner. And it was about uh, honoring the late Harvey Milk on SFO. Now, the Board of Supervisors had already pulled some shenanigans to honor Harvey Milk on uh, prominently on SFO somewhere. I think your international terminal, one of them, I don't remember which. And they had a design issue. And the supervisor who was about this, let me pull her up here on my website. This supervisor, Hillary Ronan, I can't get her face. All right. This supervisor, please pardon me, Hillary Ronan, she had come to the conclusion that the design was not big enough to honor Harvey Milk. Now, I basically blew a gasket on that, I'll admit. But what had happened? Maybe a year ago, this issue came up, and probably before that, many people heard then supervisor, what's his name, David Campos, propose naming the whole airport after Harvey Milk. Well, he got shot down immediately. And so they tabled the issue. And as they tabled the issue, he went out of office, and his aide, this Hillary Ronan on the left, replaced him. And so she had been doing some of her own pandering to the LGBT community. And so she decided to run something back up the flagpole. Well, it worked somewhat. And so they decided to honor Harvey Milk by putting a plaque or something, naming a terminal after him or something like that. Well, then there was a design issue. And she called the design insulting because it wasn't big enough. Well, that got me going. I first posted on my NBADoesn'tCare.com website an open letter to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. And in this open letter, I described the situation, why I objected to this honoring of Harvey Milk. I said he was no gay Gandhi. And I understand that people think very highly of him. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but you don't know your history. Look at this letter. This is a copy of a letter from San Diego State University. At the top, it says Alternative Consideration of Jonestown and People's Temple. It's a letter from Harvey Milk to President Jimmy Carter, he, in this letter, is praising the Reverend Jim Jones, cult leader who is responsible for the death of 900 black San Franciscans back in 1978, November 18th. He, earlier in the year, was praising Jim Jones because he was friends with Jim Jones. Jim Jones is responsible for him being elected to the Board of Supervisors because his followers, the Reverend Jim Jones followers, campaigned heavily for Harvey Milk. Now, in this letter, I must also mention the subject of the letter is a 6-year-old boy that Jim Jones is trying to take from its parents. Now, it gets complicated because Jim Jones is the surrogate father of the 6-year-old. But he didn't want to have anything to do with the kid. He gave it over to the couple who was not able to have children, and they wanted so desperately to have a child, and they were members of Jim Jones Church. So Harvey Milk, knowing of this, he sends a letter to the President of the United States asking the President to intervene on behalf of the Reverend Jim Jones. Now, Jimmy Carter did not respond to the letter the way Harvey Milk wanted. But still, you don't send a letter to anybody praising that individual, talking about how wonderful he is and what a great father he is, and stop these people from picking on him if you're not friends. Well, later on that year, that 6-year-old child is one of the people that Jim Jones murdered in Jonestown. On the right is the 30th anniversary. I don't know whether you call it a commemoration, yes, of the 900 black people who lost their lives at the hands of Jim Jones. Now, usually, I have very little sympathy for people who are duped into such silliness. But my heart goes out to these 900 people because there was a lot of San Francisco politicians who were also duped by the Reverend Jim Jones, and they just didn't go to Jonestown. But the fact of the matter is, these 900 individuals who lost their lives at the hands of a cult leader has a friend named the late Harvey Milk, who was assassinated a week later. Was it a coincidence? Yeah, I don't think so. I think that there was divine intervention, and I won't go too far into that. But the whole issue of the Reverend Jim Jones killing all these black folks, and then San Francisco have the audacity to honor one of his buddies, Harvey Milk, a former supervisor, is reprehensible. Therefore, I have called for the NAACP to take the lead in boycotting SFO. If you see, or if you look at this terminal, you can't tell from the angle, but it's a rendition. It's a artist drawing. Harvey Milk Terminal on SFO. The the airport commission does not like, and uh, it, they're against naming an airport after any individual. Were there more deserving individuals than Harvey Milk? Yes. In San Francisco? Yes. Why Harvey Milk? Well, that should be obvious. Because he's the gay icon of San Francisco. And this supervisor wants to honor the gay icon of San Francisco in a more prominent way. And I could not be more disappointed in what she's trying to do. But I spell out in these 4 or 5 paragraphs why I object to this. And it was because I came up on this news article in the San Francisco Examiner this past week titled "Soup's Push to Make Sign Honoring Harvey Milk More Prominent." It wasn't bad enough that you're honoring him. We want a bigger sign, is what this supervisor is saying. Well, we have got to put our foot down at some point. Now, as we know that my NBA doesn't care.com website is dedicated to my mission to stop the Golden State Warriors from moving to San Francisco. But just think, let's say for the sake of argument, the Alan Jones loses his fight and the Warriors move to San Francisco. It ain't gonna happen. But let's just say that happened. San Francisco is probably going to be the preferred airport for the team to fly into. I don't know. I believe they fly into Oakland Airport right now. I don't know anything about that. I'm just assuming based on where Oracle is in the airport. But when they move to San Francisco, I just don't think that they'll be using Oakland Airport to fly in. Therefore, flying into San Francisco International Airport, SFO, all of the black players are going to get a glimpse. Because the airport is so huge, not the hugest, but the largest, but it's huge, they probably won't even notice. But say they get a glimpse of Harvey Milk on the terminal. Then they learn of the history of Harvey Milk. He had an affinity for young boys. He was elected by the help of black cult followers of Jim Jones, and his friend Jim Jones murdered those 900 followers, and including one 6-year-old boy. think he was 7 at the time. So when you really look at it, can you imagine these athletes flying in touchdown and looking at Harvey Milk's name and learning just on a hunch, well, who was this Harvey Milk guy? And they just so happen to search out and they find out all of this shenanigans. Don't you think that they're going to feel duped? Is it that we are flying into an airport and this airport is honoring a white man who was a real buddy with a cult leader who killed 900 blacks? That's why I say San Francisco NAACP should take the lead, but I'm not going to stop there. I think that this is a state and national issue that I will be pushing, that we boycott SFO to get a message across to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors who insist on pandering to the LGBTQ community. It's a no-brainer that you don't honor the friend of a mass murderer. Can you just imagine the connection? Or how could I be taken seriously if I was friends with Charles Manson, Ted Bundy, Wayne Allen Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer? These are reprehensible individuals that have been in society for quite some time. They did the unthinkables. But none of them, as ugly as they were, Charles Manson was the picture of a devil. None of them have done what Jim Jones did. Now, but if I was connected to any of these other serial killers, I don't think the people would take me seriously. So why is San Francisco taking Harvey Milk so seriously? I personally think that the LGBTQ community was so desperate for a leader, and his name was there, and he did some good, so they decided to hook their wagon to his train. But the fact of the matter is most people who know of this individual, they must know of his shenanigans. There was a book about him. I think it was called The Mayor of Castro Street, where he bragged about his affection for young boys. In fact, when he was assassinated in 1978, his lover at the time was 15 years old. That's in the book. I'm not making this stuff up. But the fact that there is a line that we must be drawing. San Francisco Board of Supervisors last year removed the name of a street because it had connections to some strange connections. Let me try and rehearse it. It was Phelan Street by City College. And the son of this Thielen had made some remarks derogatory towards blacks. That is the reason why they decided to change the name from Thielen to whatever it is now. Frida something way. Now, really, it wasn't the man Thielen. It was his son that you had a issue with. Now, I understand apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but the fact is San Francisco, like many other areas in the country, are taking a bold stand trying to rip down all kinds of racist uh, history, where statues have been erected to honor people who have done some reprehensible things themselves against blacks. But even your association should be considered. You should not be able to, keep in mind, wait a minute, you should not be able to be honored in this manner if there was no repentance. And from my understanding, the politicians who are alive today and were duped by the Reverend Jim Jones, they have repented. I've heard some of their apologies and discuss. One, namely, Willie L. Brown Jr. He had once described Jim Jones as Martin Luther King. And he, too, was duped. But the fact of the matter is, Willie Brown lived long enough to apologize. And I'm saying that if Harvey Milk was here today, I'm sure he would apologize too. But he's not. And therefore, I'm saying if the LGBTQ community wants to honor Harvey Milk, I have no issue. But to put his name on San Francisco International Airport in such a prominent way, I'm saying you are dishonoring the 900 blacks that his buddy killed. And I'm saying that that's asking too much. Black folks have for quite some time been silent on this issue. But you're poking a bear. You are poking a sleeping bear when you decide that you want to do something like this. And I'm saying that I will be pushing this issue. I sent a copy of my concerns to the airport commission. Now, they're not going to do anything. They don't have the teeth or the backbone. And I did send it to the head of the San Francisco chapter of the NAACP. Will he respond? I doubt it. If he does, I'll be very surprised and happy to assist him in educating him on stuff that I know he was here to witness for himself. But in the meantime, I say blacks, folks, should boycott SFO. Now, I have a niece, and she travels all over the world. And from time to time, she asked me to give her a ride to the airport. Well, since my vehicle's not running right now, it's impossible. But the fact of the matter is I'm not even going to give anybody a ride to the airport. That's the type of boycott I was. And I am suggesting that black taxi cab drivers, black Uber drivers, black Lyft drivers, black limo drivers all boycott SFO in a statement to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors saying, you've gone too far. Take down this sign. It's not up yet, but they're in the planning stages. And they're going to spend a lot of money, I'm sure. But I'm saying that we need to stand up and realize you can only do so much before we black people say, wait a minute, this is not right. How are you going to honor a person who was connected to a mass murderer of black folks? It just does not make sense. And for San Francisco Board of Supervisors knowingly to do this, it's a double slap in the face to blacks. Talk about indifference. You're basically saying, we don't care how much blacks have suffered. We want to honor Harvey Milk. Well, have you not honored him for 40 years? Was it not enough? People, I am a homosexual. So it is not that I am against honoring a homosexual. But not this one. He is unworthy. Now, if he's worthy to some, okay, sure. Have your little low celebration for Harvey Milk. But why do you shove this honor into the face of black people? Now, I'll grant the fact that not many black people know of what I'm mentioning now. They don't know the history of Harvey Milk. Barack Obama, former president, honored Harvey Milk. Well, do you think that he knew that Harvey Milk was friends with a mass murderer? No. Because they hid it. There was a movie about Harvey Milk. I think it was titled Milk. You think any connection with the Reverend Jim Jones was in there? No. Because they hid it. They didn't want people to know about the real Harvey Milk and how he used his friend Jim Jones to get elected to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors in 1977. People, we can't just be pallbearers. You heard me say last week, a torchbearer carries the message. A pallbearer buries the message. We have got to rise up and say to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, not this one. Not this time. Fooled me once, shame on me. Fooled me twice, shame on me. I am not going to allow this to go. And I hope that you will join me and check out all the other things that I have on NBADoesn'tCare.com, because I'm telling you, you'll be shocked. Until next time.